Hello, my self-loving card slingers. Welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me for this video where I'm going to share with you some self-love spreads. Now, a lot of you know I'm very, very into my spread design. I am guilty as charged. I love designing spreads. I've got plenty of spreads over on my Instagram that I share. I've shared spreads that I've created here before, and I have so many spreads over at my online store. I really love spread creation, so it's a pleasure to be able to come here and give you 4 really good spread design ideas for Self-Love September. Obviously, if it's not September and you're watching this way in the future, these are evergreen spreads. They're not just for the month of September, so just go right ahead and use them whenever and however you need. Tweak them as you want to, but I will kind of lay them out as I designed them. And they kind of cover 4 key, really important aspects of the self-love practice. So we're going to go along and I'm going to give you a quick demo of each of them and break down the spread designs. They are all listed in the description as well. So if any of them take your fancy, you can go down below, pick up the spread positions and go nuts, go crazy, enjoy, use the deck that you feel is suitable for the purpose and do the readings for yourself. Today, my darlings, I'm going to be using the Tridevia Tarot deck. I am absolutely obsessed with this new addition to my collection. Look at it. Just behold it for a moment, okay? Look at these cards. What the hell? They're so stunning. Really, really beautiful cards. The shine on them is intense, okay? Another one. Wow, look at the Fool. Look at the Sun. Come on now. Beautiful. I really want to thank Calmora for asking me if I wanted a copy of this deck to play with and review and just kind of like get to grips with. And I said yes. I very rarely take decks that I'm offered. When you are a pro in the industry, you are offered access to decks that you can kind of look at and play with and give your opinions on. I very often say no because I've got the collection that I want. And so there's very rarely an opening for something new. But this one really grabbed me, I think, for very obvious aesthetic reasons. So I really want to thank Marina at Calmora for getting in touch with me and asking if I wanted to play with this one. And if you like the look of this, then there is a 10% discount code for my audience. So I'm going to leave that in the description also. Thank you, Calmora, for giving my audience an opportunity to own this deck at a reduced rate. Okay. Let's get into the 4 spreads that I've designed. And I really hope that this enriches you, my darlings. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any that particularly vibe with you or are helping you with anything that you're going through or need assistance with at the moment in the way of self-love. Let's get to it and I will show you the first of the 4. So we're going to go in hard for the first one, my darlings. We're going to look at a very important topic for self-love, and that is boundary setting and holding firm to your boundaries, okay? So this is all about making sure that you know that you're allowed to say no and you're allowed to set conditions and you're allowed some limitations. This is a really important sort of part of the self-love practice, I guess, for all of us. So it's really useful to have a spread around this, and it is called the Boundary Defender spread. It is 8 cards in length, okay? So let me show you now what the 8 spread positions are. The first one is the deep nature of the boundary, okay? So if you don't know what kind of boundary you are wanting to set, but you know that you feel you probably need some, then this first card is going to help you to access what kind of boundary would be suitable. But if you already know the boundary that you want to set and you want to do a reading around it, then this will just help you to look into it a bit more deeply, okay? The second position is what scares or troubles me about setting this boundary. Quite self-explanatory. It's what you feel like the issues are going to be, what makes you nervous about setting this boundary, if anything. The third card is what would help me set the boundary. Again, pretty self-explanatory. What tools do you need? You know, what would really assist you in setting the boundary and keeping it strong? The fourth card is looking at the more subtle and non-verbal tools for keeping the boundary strong. Okay, so whenever we set boundaries and hold boundaries, we have like our more subtle ways of keeping them strong, right? By our behaviors and the way that we sort of operate and interact with people, and what we do and do not say yes to. And then we have the verbal, you know, the more explicit boundaries. So this one is the subtle and non-verbal ways, the tools that will help you to keep the boundary strong. The fifth card is the explicit and verbal tools for keeping the boundary strong. So what might you actually need to communicate to somebody explicitly with words to help keep the boundary strong? And that might also take you into, both of these cards may take you into the situations where the more subtle and then the more explicit forms of boundary keeping will come into play. The sixth card is looking at potential issues that might come up when you're setting and keeping this boundary. So this one is more of like the warning elements, just letting you know what might be the more difficult aspects of holding the boundary that you really want to put into motion. The seventh card is keeping the boundary strong through any issues that you encounter. So this card number 6, is more of, what would the issues be? Where would they come up? The seventh card is how to deal with them, how to make sure the boundary is still kept strong, even when there are issues. And then the eighth card, which is so important, is why the boundary matters. So whenever you feel like you're not allowed to keep the boundary, maybe you should relent, maybe it's important for you to be self-sacrificial and put the boundary out of play, this eighth card will remind you why it's important, why it matters, why it's good for you. So this one will be really good to keep in mind as you go forward defending your boundaries. This spread is called the Boundary Defender spread. So it's really all about helping you to have those tools and that strength to keep your boundaries strong when needed. So this one is very potent, my darlings. Let me do you a quick demo to help you to see how it all falls into place. This is not going to be obviously like, a full length in-depth reading like I would give to a client or anything. And it's not for anyone in particular watching this, okay? It's just a quick demo to help you see how each of these cards actually work when they are in relationship together. So card number 1, the deep nature of the boundary. So what do we need to know about the nature of this boundary? The card is justice. And with that, we're really looking at the fact that it's fair. It's fair and it's right for you to hold this boundary. And perhaps what justice implies is that you actually support other people who hold this boundary. And so why should you not want to hold it yourself? The justice card, when it comes to the nature of the boundary, could really be about ethics, that you want to keep to your ethics by holding the boundary that you're setting. So it could really be a boundary that's about your ethical guidelines and your ethical limits, right? So when you don't hold the boundary, you might be out of step with your ethics, which is a very scary thing to have happen, and to find yourself in that situation is not good. So maybe that's a reason why it's good to hold this boundary, because it's an ethical thing. And it might also be the case that whenever you hold this boundary, you are more in balance, because justice can very much be about balance. The second card, what scares or troubles you about setting the boundary? The card that's come through is Judgment. Wow, that's a big one, because Judgment is all about rebirth, awakening, massive shift, transformation, paradigm change. And so this is a big fear, really, because it's kind of saying, well, if I hold this boundary, everything could change. My own mindset about my life could change. My perception of my reality could change. And the relationships around me could also be subject to change or subject to leaving, So Judgment is really about like, wow, if I hold this boundary firm, there could be skin shed energy for me and for the situations and relationships in my life, So this is kind of a big fear. Let's have a look at what would help you set the boundary in this demonstration, in this example. Page of Wands is the card that's come up. Very interesting. So I think with this one, this is about a little bit of daring and a little bit of risk for what would help you set the boundary. You're being told that you're going to have to really come into your fire and your passion and your potency and your charisma to be able to set the boundary. I think this one is really saying you're not going to be able to do this meekly and quietly and apologetically and, really sort of like hoping silently that this will come to fruition. Page of Wands is really saying best foot forward. Know that you want whatever this boundary set is going to bring in. Exude confidence when you're setting the boundary, and have a confidence that the boundary is going to get you somewhere good. That when you hold this boundary, good things come out of it, and that your potency is far more fired up, and it's sort of far more healthy. Page of Wands, I think, often tells us that in order to have something we've never had, we have to do something we've never done. So it's really like saying, look, chest out, breathe in, and really sort of like own yourself yourself, right? Own your right to have the boundary that you want to have. So it's a mindset thing, I think, but it's also about getting ready to take a risk, doing something in a different way, holding yourself differently, exuding your energy differently, and really connecting with your energy field differently so that people know that you're not to be played with, and so that you always remember that you are allowed the boundary that you're setting. Let's have a look at the subtle and non-verbal tools for keeping the boundary. In this example, it's Two of Swords. Very, very interesting. So what this one is, I think, in this example, right, would be Two of Swords can often be about decision making. It can be about weighing up the pros and cons of something. It can be about trying to get internally clear about what you want and what you don't want and what is the right way forward. So what does that mean for a non-verbal tool? It means that when somebody else around you is very sure of what you should do or what everyone should do or what the right way is, you don't agree with them immediately. You hold your power. You say, okay, that's an interesting plan. Let me think about it, right? So you're not actually saying outright, I think that that oversteps a boundary, but you're taking time to decide whether or not it's what you want. Maybe you reserve your judgment before coming into a conversation and saying what you want. Maybe you don't text back immediately to somebody or agree to a plan immediately because you want people to subtly understand that actually you do check in with yourself before you make any kind of decision. I think Two of Swords is also a vibe, right? So Two of Swords is the vibe of somebody who knows that they're allowed to keep their own counsel and they're allowed to listen to themselves before they make any decisions. So putting forth that vibe that you are that type of person who's going to take things slowly, you're not going to rush in, you're going to reserve your judgment, and you're going to speak only when you're ready. You know, you're not going to stumble into something feeling like you have to do something a certain way. Two of Swords is somebody, I think, who does hold their own counsel and listens to themselves. So it could be that you want to put forward that energy and that vibe that you're not someone who's just a yes person. And so there are going to be situations where you're going to be able to demonstrate that without having to explicitly state your boundary, but it's more just about how you deal with situations where decisions need to be made. You want to show that you are somebody that holds your own counsel. You do not expect yourself to immediately jump to action or make decisions. Now let's have a look at the explicit ways, right? So here you're really stating the boundary. You're claiming your boundary through conversation with people. Let's have a look what's going on there. Ooh, the Emperor. Okay. So the Emperor is saying when you need to actually state your boundary explicitly through words, do not mince those words. The Emperor is unapologetic, firm but fair, right? So this is really encouraging you to make sure that you're not overly apologetic about the boundary that you're setting. You also don't need to be overly dramatic or forceful about the boundary you're setting. It can really just be clear, calm, to the point, and obviously something that is non-negotiable. If you think about how the Emperor would communicate, I don't think of the Emperor as being like super dramatic, super theatrical, needing loads of validation about what he's doing. I think of the Emperor as an energy that is really just like, I am really centered in what I want and don't want and what I will and will not do. And I'm just clearly explaining to you calmly, without apologizing, but also without being cruel, that this is not what is going to happen. I do not want to do that and will not be doing that, right? So the Emperor, again, is that energy. It's a mood. It's a vibe that says that when it's time for you to actually verbally lay the law down about your boundary, you're going to do it without apology, without tears or theatrics, without wanting to know, is that okay by you? And I'm so sorry, right? None of that. The Emperor is just very much like, oh, okay, that's outside of what I can do. You know, I just don't do that. You know, I think of the Emperor as being someone that's like, there doesn't need to be any more discussion. That's just not something that I do. You know, not comfortable with it, never have been, don't do it. That's it. Card 6 is the potential issues that you may find come up when you are trying to hold and defend your boundary. In this example, it's Queen of Wands. Very interesting. So I think Queen of Wands in this example could mean a couple of things. First of all, it could mean that, you know, you might come up against people who have a very strong vision, an idea of what they would like to have happen. Obviously, when you set a boundary that goes against what their vision is for what they want you to do, you're going to inconvenience them. So you may come up against some strong personalities. Another thing Queen of Wands could mean is that you may be seen as a kind of troublesomely strong personality, right? So Queen of Wands is someone who is very situated in their vision. Whenever you hold a boundary, you can be seen as a troublemaker. And perhaps it's more of the Queen of Wands type of person who may see you as an adversarial troublemaker because you are going against their vision. So it's navigating situations potentially where your boundary defending is causing somebody else's vision to lose traction. And there is tension there. Right. So it's really warning you that, like, yeah, you know, there might be some feathers ruffled, but you've really got to hold strong. And how do you hold strong when that happens? That's card 7. Card 7, remember, is keeping the boundary strong through issues. And this card is strength. A really good card because it's saying, you know what, you got to weather the storm. You've got to keep breathing. You've got to keep centered. It's not going to be something that's going to be figured out straight away. When feathers are ruffled with this boundary, you're really going to have to show fortitude, right? Don't fall at the first fucking hurdle. That's the message of this one. Card number 8, why does the boundary matter? The card in this example is King of Cups. This one is great for this demonstration, King of Cups, because really it's like saying you are the defender of your heart when it comes to this boundary. This boundary is not just something that would like make your life a little bit better or improve things for you in a certain way. This boundary is about protecting who you are in your heart, your deepest beliefs, right? So it's really giving the gravitas that came up in Justice earlier. Justice and King of Cups as the kind of bookends for this spread are really big because Justice as the deep nature of the boundary and then King of Cups for why the boundary matters. Whoa, this is a big boundary. This is like saying, you know what, you need this for your health and well-being. You need this to feel spiritually okay. This is not something where you can frivolously just say, oh, okay, you know what, never mind this boundary. No, this one's a big one. So I think definitely look at those bookends in the spread in particular. You know, every card in this spread is important for your boundary defender, but I think that it's really interesting that the first and last cards have such gravitas, I think, in this spread. So it's really looking at that. The nature of the boundary and why the boundary matters will really like give you that permission and help you get very clear about what will go wrong if you don't hold the boundary, you know, like what is really at stake if you don't hold it. So that's the boundary defender. I'm really interested to know what comes up when you do your own. Is this the kind of spread you've been looking for? Have you been trying to set and hold a boundary lately and it's been difficult? If so, grab your deck, give this one a go. I absolutely love the boundary defender. It's awesome. I may possibly put it in the online store, so I will keep you posted on that. But that's that for the first one. Let's get into the second. So this second spread is a lot more lighthearted, I suppose you could say. We went in very hard with the boundary defender. This one is, you know, more fun, but I also think it's still really important for a decent self-love practice, okay? This is the 5-card date planner. And this is really about like helping you to plan a beautiful date with yourself. I'm a huge proponent of planning dates with yourself. And for many, many moons now, I have been a person who plans dates with myself. I like to give just as much consideration and excitement and joy into planning dates with myself and figuring out how to enjoy time with me as I do with friends and partners and stuff. So this is the 5-card date planner. Let me show you the positions, okay? Let's give it one more little go there. Okay, so it's 5 positions, obviously. That's why it's called the 5-card date planner. First spread position is what to do. All right, so this is what is going to help you actually create the vision for the date that you want to have with yourself. Are you staying in? Are you going out? Like, are you seeing art? What are you doing? Right, you're going to be with yourself. But what is going to be the plan? Is it going to be like a inner child thing, an inner artist thing? You find out using that card. Second card is what to wear. Yes, that is very important to me, okay? Third card is how to maximize the experience. So how to be as beautiful to yourself as possible, how to be as attentive to yourself as possible. Are you going to get yourself a gift? Are you going to take yourself for dinner? Like, are you going to journal? Like, how are you going to make it really beautiful? The fourth card is the aftercare card. So this is like what happens after the date. You know, how do you kind of like really absorb the experience and think about what it gave you and how you're going to move on afterwards? Because I think when you spend really meaningful, wholesome, connected time with yourself, it's good afterwards to have a little bit of like a post-mortem, you know, like think about what really came from that and how can I be beautiful to myself afterwards and really sort of like absorb what I experienced on that date with myself. And then the fifth card is key reminders for date success. Okay, so the whole thing, right, going on the day and then aftercare, kind of winding down, all of that, how can you make it as successful as it can possibly be for you? What do you need to remember throughout the entire process to make sure that it really cooks on gas and it's a beautiful date with yourself? Let me do you a little demo of this one so you can see a little bit how it works. I know this one is perhaps a lot more self-explanatory than the boundary defender, but let's go ahead anyway and I'll do you a quick demo. So what to do on the date for this particular demonstration, we have the hanged man is what to do on the date. Beautiful hanged man. So what does that mean? That means that you're not going to be doing anything too active. You're probably going to be staying home. In fact, almost definitely you're going to be staying home, unless you want to interpret this as like a meditation class or something like that. But the hanged man is probably about staying home, taking online classes, relaxing, you know, doing deep breathing and meditation, spending time in your own company, spending time like enjoying the presence of yourself in your environment or surroundings. Now, you don't have to stay home. It might be that you want to go outside into the woods if the weather is permitting or something like that. Or if you've got budget, maybe you want to actually book a hotel or an Airbnb, something of that nature. And it's really about like going away for the evening somewhere else. Could even be a retreat. Like, who knows? You know, you might want to go on a very spiritually bougie date with yourself. I don't know. But it's going to be something where it's a lot of internal work, a lot of processing, a lot of gently being with the body, a lot of coming back to yourself. It's not going to be a great deal of like running around, going to dinner, seeing art, seeing a movie, none of that stuff. The hanged man is very much like that inward, you know, very sort of self-possessed vibe. So that's very much the vibe of it. You might want to read. The hangman could just be you at home reading like all day, just luxurious, okay? Or even just for the 2 hours that you've planned for your date with yourself or whatever, you might think, okay, this is reading, journaling, napping. That's what that is. That's my beautiful date with myself. What are you going to wear? King of Wands. Interesting. So this is basically the spread saying, hey, just because you're going to be doing something that is relaxing and inward and where you're not going to be like, you know, going out in the streets or attending anything or buying a ticket for anything, probably it's just going to be like you chilling and being at one with yourself, does not mean that you get to slob around in something that doesn't make you feel great, okay? So King of Wands is basically like, I think if the hanged man, for me, if I'm going to be at home reading and stuff like that, the hanged man, I'm thinking loungewear, I'm thinking pajamas, right? I'm thinking like, okay, I don't have to make an effort. I don't have to put makeup on. I don't have to do any of that shit. Not that I have to do that anyway, but I like to, you know? So I'd be like, oh, the hanged man, I'm definitely going to be dressing down. King of Wands is a card that says, hey, I want you to put like a kimono on or like a beautiful silk gown, whatever. I want you to put something on that makes you feel really righteous rather than just putting on your ordinary like loungewear, you know, something that you would put on if you were ill or watching TV. King of Wands is saying, I still want you to make an effort. I still want you to feel fabulous. I want you to put some perfume on. I want you to lift it. Okay, so don't think that just because this is a very internal process and a very kind of like sort of, I guess, hermity kind of date, don't think that you can get away with just like dressing in something that doesn't make you feel that it's an elevated situation. It's a special situation. So I think King of Wands is coming along saying, you know, maybe you want to wear something that you enjoy to wear that's comfortable but makes you feel glamorous, right? Something of that nature. I think King of Wands would be about like getting the beautiful blanket out as well, draping it over yourself, you know, I don't know. I think King of Wands is quite flamboyant and quite kind of like arty, so that's very special. And I also wonder if King of Wands, for the witches among you, is saying something akin to like, you know, paint a sigil on yourself, you know, put something on yourself, an amulet or a sigil and something like that to make it more witchy in nature. Because don't forget, King of Wands is like the art witch king, you know. King of Wands has a wand, all right? There's something about that. So it's also about like giving it that witchy edge as well. How to maximize the experience. That's the third card. And it's 3 of Swords in this particular demonstration. So Three of Swords is saying, feel your feelings. Don't run away from your feelings. If you find that being alone, being on this date with yourself brings up some difficult stuff that you've been maybe struggling to process, you've been needing the time and the space to be able to get into, don't be afraid of that. Hold yourself, hug yourself through it. Three of Swords is saying there is room for the more difficult things that you're feeling. You do not have to dress this day up like it's just happy-go-lucky, everything's perfect, everything's positive. Be honest with yourself. I think that's what Three of Swords would be saying in this demonstration. The Aftercare card, which is card 4, is Death. Wow, that's a really potent one. So I feel like Death is kind of maybe saying afterwards do something totally different, Make sure that there is a clear differentiation between the date that you have been on with yourself and the next thing that happens. So, switch it up, really make it so that it's a different energy. And that more defines it clearly as a date with yourself rather than just being whatever you're going to do for the next bit of the evening or the next day. It's really just like coming back into your life with others or the rest of what you're doing so that you clearly differentiate that date as being special. I also think what this card might mean in terms of like aftercare and winding down and stuff like that is that it could mean that afterwards you might definitely feel different and have a different outlook. And it's okay to acknowledge that. And it's okay to integrate that through journaling about it or doing a quick ritual to witness that actually the date had some kind of transmutational effect on you. And now let's have a look at key reminders for date success. In this demo, it is the Emperor. We have the Emperor again. This is powerful. So it's basically like own what you want to do. Definitely set a boundary. It's funny because the Emperor came up in Boundary Defender, but I definitely think the Emperor would say this. Set a boundary, like hold firm to the date and time that you want to have this experience with yourself. Turn your phone off if that's what's required, Let people know who would normally try and get in touch with you or expect to be able to communicate with you. Let them know I'm having this date with myself. So the Emperor is very kind of like, this is what needs to happen. This is what I'm doing, and that's it. So be very strong with yourself. If you want to cancel your date with yourself because you think, oh, I've got too much to do, there's something else I could be doing. No, hold firm with yourself. I think that's what the Emperor is probably saying for key reminders for date success. Take the date seriously. The Emperor is a very serious card, right? The Emperor is serious about what they're doing, all right? The energy is very much like, this is what the fuck is happening, and I'm very serious about it. I want it to be good, and I insist upon that. So definitely insist upon that for your date with yourself. So this is a quick demo just to let you know how this 5-card date planner works. Try it for yourself. Let me know what kind of date are you going on and how is that going to enhance and impact your self-love practice. So the third spread that I want to share with you, darlings, for self-love is the Impostor Syndrome Soother. So a lot of people have issues with imposter syndrome, and you can look up and get into what that is, but I think a lot of you already know imposter syndrome is where you don't feel like you are capable or worthy or valid in doing the thing that you're doing, whether that's making art, whether that's working at the job that you work at, whether that's parenthood, whatever it might be. You kind of feel like at some point someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, you don't belong here, how did you get in, right? And imposter syndrome is a massive thing that we need to deal with if we want to have a self-love practice. So I want to share with you a 6-card spread called the Impostor Syndrome Soother. If you have this particular issue, you can use that spread. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, my darlings, let's select a certain point in the deck and go for it. So position 1, this is going to be your superpowers. So if you have imposter syndrome, you're going to be quite unsure of your superpowers. And so this is going to be a really, really good card for you because it's going to give you your flowers. It's going to give you your credit. It's going to tell you where you're particularly strong. Now, I would recommend when you do the Imposter Syndrome Soother that you have a particular area of life in mind where you do tend to have imposter syndrome. But you can do this more generally if you want to. You might find that you have imposter syndrome in a lot of areas. So you just want to look at this spread overall for any area where imposter syndrome is a problem. Either way, this is going to tell you some areas where you're really strong. It's not going to tell you all of the areas where you're strong, but it's going to really highlight and put the microscope over some areas where you really shine and you have strengths and capabilities. The second card in this 6-card spread is going to be your right to shine. That's what the second card is all about. So this is really like your worthiness, your validity, your entitlement to be able to do what you're doing and claim your skills and enjoy what you're doing, right? So a lot of people with imposter syndrome just really struggle to believe that it's okay for them to do what they're doing, to train in what they're training in, to say that, yes, I do this thing, I am this thing, I'm capable with this thing, I know what I'm doing in this area. So your right to shine, again, gives you that sense of empowerment. It says you have the right to be here, to do this thing, to claim the training that you've done, to claim the experiences that you've had. The third card is who or what assists you. So when you're struggling with imposter syndrome, who or what actually allows you to be able to move through it? Are there certain people that really have a great impact on you? Are there certain situations that come up where imposter syndrome is, less of an issue? Are there certain mindsets, certain things you need to remember, certain internal or spiritual or psychological tools? The fourth card is who or what hinders you. So is there anything that actually makes your imposter syndrome particularly bad? Is there anything or anyone, any situation, any relationship that comes up that makes your imposter syndrome worse in some way? This fourth card will really allow you to just watch out for that. You might not be able to get rid of it entirely. That might not be realistic, but you might be able to decrease it, or at least know that, when I'm in that situation, when I'm talking to that kind of person, when I'm dealing with that kind of scenario, I do struggle with imposter syndrome there. So I really need to look out for that. The fifth spread position is best for success, right? So this is telling you what kind of environments, relationships, projects, etc. are the best for you to get the most success with the least imposter syndrome holding you back. And then the sixth card is avoid where possible. So these are environments, relationships, projects, situations where actually there are a great deal of issues with you surviving and thriving in that area. Maybe you need more practice with dealing with imposter syndrome. Maybe it's just toxic for you to be in that kind of scenario. And so your imposter syndrome is going to be off the hinge because of the stresses and the pressures. And it's not actually fair on you to be in that environment. So this is about really avoid those situations, those discussions, those mindsets. They're kind of toxic for you. And therefore, it's best to be able to avoid them. So let's do a demo of the imposter syndrome soother with the 6 random cards that I've chosen. So position 1, your superpowers. In this demonstration, it's 5 of swords as the superpower. So this is an interesting one, because what 5 of swords could be saying is that actually one of your superpowers is at least to know that you do have the right to step away from anything that is disempowering to you. One of the strengths of 5 of swords, one of the superpowers, is being able to hold your boundary. So somebody with this card in this position for imposter syndrome soother probably doesn't need to do the first spread that I demonstrated, which was boundary defender, because actually you're quite good with boundaries. When something is harmful to you, when something is really causing you to feel that you are being put out of alignment with yourself, you're being criticized or mocked, you're being placed into a situation where you could never be allowed to win, and you could never be allowed to thrive, you walk away. So this is an interesting card because it's saying you do have an ability to defend yourself, stick up for yourself, and make sure that you are not in situations where things are unhealthy and where things are stacked against you to the point where, of course, imposter syndrome comes up because the situation itself is not fair and not right. So 5 of swords is quite a hardcore card in this position because it's saying you do have the ability to step away and to fight for yourself if necessary. The other thing that's important with 5 of swords is that one of your strengths is actually to be in the combative stance. So you've probably worked hard for everything that you've had. You've probably struggled against the odds to be able to have success. You've probably really had to lock into your sense of tenacity, perseverance, resilience. Don't forget 5 of swords is a combat card, right? So it says that you've been through some battles, you've been through some wars to be able to attain what you have. That's a superpower. You have come from the school of hard knocks, basically. That's what this card could be saying. A superpower for you is that you've had to tough it out. Your warrior archetype is to the front. And so that's something that this card is really commending for you as well. Not only do you defend yourself, fight for yourself, know where your boundaries are, but also you've had to work doubly hard to get the things that you have. And so your warrior mode is really kind of it's something that you're in alignment with. It's something that you've really had to celebrate and foster in yourself. I think this card might mean that you don't take shit, essentially, which is definitely a superpower. So the second one is your right to shine in this particular demonstration. It's Ace of Wands. This is really beautiful. It's basically saying that you have the right to claim your fire, to shelter your fire, and to nurture your potential the same way everybody does, you know? Ace of Wands is about your great fire of internal potential, and it's saying that you have a big fire of internal potential. So of course you have every right to nurture and shelter and protect that and get to see what it's going to live to be. It's really like saying, don't let your brightness and your wisdom and your ability die inside you. Don't hold back from letting it be everything that it needs to be, because it is there and it is valid and it wants to grow. It wants to sprout upwards and come forth, you know? I think basically with this right to shine card, Ace of Wands, it could be saying that you have a responsibility to the fire inside you. You are its parent. You are its steward. You have every right to say, that's in me, and I want to give it shelter and give it nourishment and see it grow. The third card is who or what assists you when you've got imposter syndrome. And that card is Six of Cups. This shows that when you are in loving community with people, that really assists you. When you feel validated and you can validate in return, and there's a reciprocal sense that together you are collaborating on something, that really helps you. The other thing about Six of Cups is it can often be not only about a healthy community, but about the oldest relationships in your life. So your oldest friends, the people that know you best, the people that have had an attachment to you through time, will be able to see you and witness your light, and they'll be able to shine that back to you when you're struggling sometimes. Six of Cups implies that you really enjoy kind of like copacetic, collaborative, cooperative arrangements where everybody gets the chance to shine. So it's not like you want to be the leader and demonstrate your superiority, and you definitely don't want anyone else to do that either. You like teamwork. You like the feeling that everybody is involved, everybody is being praised, everybody is getting something from the scenario. So that's what tends to assist you. What hinders you? Card 4. Justice. That's really interesting. So justice is about fairness. It's about equality. A lot of the time, it's really about making sure that the right thing is happening, you know? Whenever you feel, this is like what I think it kind of means in this demonstration, whenever you feel like you have to prove that you have the right to be somewhere, that it's fair for you to be somewhere, that it makes sense that you are in this place, right? Whenever you try to justify that you're in that place, that's what tends to hinder you. And so anyone who's making you feel that way, and any scenario where you feel that way, is going to be a difficulty. But most of it is about mindset. Justice is saying that a lot of the time you might feel that it's unfair for you to be in a position where you get to speak, where you get to shine, where you get to do a certain job, where you get to claim a certain skill. And actually, it's really looking at that and saying, how is that unfair though? I'm not trying to stop anyone else from being able to claim their power. I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to shut anyone out. I'm just trying to enjoy having this skill that I have, or having this interest that I have. So why is it that I feel like I need to make a case? Why is it that I feel I need to justify? So whenever you get that sense that you need to justify, that will hinder you. I think that one of the shadows that comes up with this card might be that if somebody gets this card in this position, they might be the type of person that expects others to justify why they're good at something, why they should be able to do something, right? So a little bit of shadow work there with that one. Because if I got this card for a querent, I might say, okay, you don't have to justify why you want to do something or be something, but also maybe in the past you've expected others to justify why they've got the right to be in a certain room, why they've got the right to do a certain thing. And so that's come back on you, right? You're now deciding that about yourself as well. Let's have a look at best for success. What really will help you to shine the brightest? And it's the star. Really interesting. I think this is basically like saying you like a sense of mission. You like to know that you're following a constellation that's leading you towards something. So when you feel like you have a mission, you have a quest, you have something that you're doing that is a sincere aim, that is a project for you, and it's really speaking to your calling in some way, then that's really good for success. The star also implies that the best avenues for success for you are connected to your sense of belief in what is good, what you're good at, and also what is right, what is important, right? So there might be an ethical sort of mission there. And also, the star is about self-compassion. It's about healing. It's about that sense of internal hope and really bringing brightness to that and knowing that it's okay for you to protect yourself in your vulnerability and be kind to yourself as you're following that North Star, right? As you are taking on your mission. So what's best for success in this situation with the star is that you can be self-caring along the way. The minute you abandon your instinct to care for yourself and look after yourself while you're doing what you're doing, the imposter syndrome is worse. So it's important to take breaks, to nurture yourself, to be good to yourself. Whenever you're going after what you're going after, but it's at the expense of your mental and physical well-being, that's going to get the imposter syndrome going, full pelt, right? So you've got to be looking after yourself, taking breaks, etc. Now let's have a look at the final card, what to avoid where possible. What is actually, it's reversed. I don't really read reversed, guys, so I'm just going to flip it over. So what is actually something that really feeds into the imposter syndrome? It's the hermit. And this is the tendency to self-isolate big time, right? To self-isolate to a shadowy degree, where the way that one may deal with their imposter syndrome is just to remove themselves from any situations where they have to work with people, where they can pursue glory in any way or prizes or certification. The hermit is that sense that, like, you know what, I deal with imposter syndrome, so I'm just going to remove myself from the race. I'm not going to let myself go into community. I'm just going to hide. It's a hiding card in this position. It links very well with who or what assists you up here, because that's Six of Cups, which is very community oriented. And it's about having those beautiful communities around you and those beautiful interactions that validate and hold you. The hermit, as what to avoid, is the total opposite of that. It's where you have cut off from community and you've said, I just can't be a part of this because I have this problem. So I'm going to step back. I'm not going to let myself shine in community. I'm not going to try and be a part of a team or collaborate in any way that's going to get me anywhere. I'm just going to run away. I'm going to hide. I'm going to isolate. So that's what that card is saying for what to avoid. That is the toxic thing in this scenario. It's not going after what you want, and it's instead just going into avoidance of people and avoidance of projects and avoidance of life. That's not going to help. So this has been a really interesting demonstration just to let you know how this works. Do it yourself, let me know what comes up for you. If you have imposter syndrome, the imposter syndrome soother might be a really good one for you. Okay, my darlings, this is the final spread and it is the self-talk level up, okay? So we all know self-talk is absolutely an essential component, an essential point of focus, right? When we're thinking about the self-love journey, all that negative self-talk that we play on repeat, that's got to go. So this particular 6-card spread is going to help you with doing that. So I'm going to show you the 6 positions first, explain them, and then we will do a little demo as we have done with the others. Okay, so the 6-card spread is as follows, all right? First one is, what kinds of things trigger your negative self-talk, okay? What kinds of things bring it up most strongly? What kinds of things happen in your life, like scenarios, conversations, relationships, etc., that tend to make the self-talk come thick and fast? That's the first position. Position 2 is giving you some tools to manage those triggers when they come up. So when you're in those situations, what's going to help? The third position is the positive self-talk level up, okay? So what do you need to be saying to yourself more? We're also going to do that with cards 4 and 5, all right? So this is the first one here, the level up, and then card 4, again, something else you need to be saying to yourself more, and then card 5, positive self-talk level up again. So we've got 3 cards that are giving you things that you need to be saying to yourself more, reminding yourself of, and really putting into play to replace that negative stuff. And then the 6th spread position is how your positive self-talk will improve things. So often when we're practicing putting more positive self-talk into our internal dialogue, it's really easy for us to forget why we're doing that and how amazing that is and how important it is. So that 6th card is really going to help you to really go for the long haul and keep going with your work, because it's basically saying, this is why it matters. This is how it's going to improve things. This is what you can expect if you put in these incredible forms of positive self-talk. So let's have a look at what is coming up in the demo. First card, what triggers negative self-talk? In this demo, it's the Hierophant. And this really often can demonstrate a querent who really feels like they have to know everything before they can join a debate or, start a project. It's this idea that they're not clever enough. They don't know enough. They will never know enough. They will never be as clever as other people. So it's really any situation whereby you feel like you're intellectually inferior, like other people have been at it for longer than you, they know more, they've been on their journey for longer. We cannot afford to allow this to be a situation where we go into negative self-talk, because if we allowed that to be the case, we would never start a job. We would never start a course of training. We would never have children. We would never go to university, right? Because we're going to be surrounded by people who know and understand more, but we still want to go ahead and do the damn thing. Every single new skill that you start, when you start learning a language, playing an instrument, being invested in any kind of subject, you are going to find that there's loads of stuff you don't know. So in this scenario, the Hierophant is implying that one thing that triggers negative self-talk is feeling that you don't know enough. So that might be really in play for a querent who receives this as that card. It's like, you know what? Whenever you feel like you're not on point intellectually, you're coming to something new, you're green, you don't know the way of things yet, that might really put you into a position where the negative self-talk comes thick and fast. So the second card, tools for managing that when it comes up. In this particular demo, it's Queen of Wands. And that's interesting because it's saying that you need to go from your desire to be good enough intellectually and to already know more to your desire to come into it with passion to know more. It's not about feeling insecure that you don't know everything. It's the excitement that you don't know everything. It's that feeling of passion for wanting and desiring to know. So never mind about that feeling of I'm not there yet and that's embarrassing or that's some kind of slight on me. Queen of Wands puts you into the position where it's like, no, enjoy that you don't know. Be the perpetual thirsty student, Queen of Wands is like passionate to absorb, right? It's that feeling of like, oh, wow, I really want to nail this because I feel passionate, not because I feel like insecure because I'm not good enough because I didn't know in the first place. Queen of Wands has that wisdom to understand, and it's that wisdom inside you that understands that everybody who is currently in the Hierophant phase once was not, right? They were just in the Fool phase. They didn't know anything. So Queen of Wands is really saying, step into the passion to know and understand that that is where you're brilliant and righteous. It's not about like, oh, wow, I don't know, so I should feel insecure and go into myself and be embarrassed because I don't know. Queen of Wands is like, switch to that mindset of fire and desire. Okay, let's have a look at the 3 positive self-talk level ups. Okay, so the 3 things that you've got to be saying to yourself more, those positive self-talk aspects. We've got the Hanged Man, the High Priestess, and 4 of Cups. Very interesting cards. So maybe the Hanged Man could be a sense of enjoyment of slow moving and the slow burn, right? If the Hierophant is the source of the negative self-talk, then what we're really looking at is somebody who wants to go, go, go. They want to be there already. They're embarrassed that they're not there already. They feel like, oh, wow, I have to hurry. I've got to cram all of this information in. I've got to know this so I can be good enough, right? The Hanged Man could be positive self-talk around enjoying the journey, enjoying the moments where you get stuck with a subject or a project and you have to research and you have to wait for the answers to come. The positive self-talk could be something like, I enjoy where I am right now. I'm enjoying the journey. Every course of learning is a journey, and I embrace that. I'm wise enough to embrace that. So it's really looking at positive self-talk around that, knowing that you're wise and mature enough to know that it is a journey and it is more of a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. The High Priestess, that is positive self-talk probably around leaning into your spirituality, your intuition, your sense of really knowing that whenever the negative self-talk comes up around not knowing enough, not being clever enough, you actually lean into like, every journey of learning is also for my spiritual betterment. I am on a spiritual journey with this learning. And so if I rush it and if I feel so insecure that I like cram and I panic, I'm going to fall over. I'm not going to be spiritually present. And actually, what I want to do is be someone who takes learning in a spiritual context. It's enhancing me spiritually. It's helping me lock into my spiritual skills, which are many and which are so important to me. The 5th card is Four of Cups, that's interesting because it's saying I listen to myself, hold myself, and love myself through my learning processes. I enjoy the fact that I'm learning about myself and enriching myself as I'm learning. It's not about anybody else. Four of Cups is very solitary. All of these cards, in fact, are very solitary. The Hangman, High Priestess, and Four of Cups, they are really about the relationship with oneself, okay? So really, all three of these cards could be saying that your positive self-talk is mostly about knowing that your journey of learning is about your journey with you. Nobody else is involved. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about really knowing that it helps you to connect with you more. When you're learning about yourself, and it's a chance to connect with yourself. Let's have a look at the final card, how positive self-talk will improve things, and that is the Sun. And that's so beautiful because the Sun is kind of saying you will have more access to joy in your learning. Instead of beating yourself up, when the positive self-talk comes in and you start checking the negative self-talk, you will actually be able to finally have fun while you're learning. Shock horror, but yes, it's possible to just have fun, to belly laugh, to enjoy every new discovery. To feel like, wow, this is something that is really lighting me up. How beautiful. Instead of worrying about how I look being a beginner and how I look not knowing everything, instead I'm just freewheeling. I'm in my inner child. I'm enjoying every experience of grasping every new tool that I didn't have before and saying, wow, I know more, and that is giving me joy. Not that's giving me status, that's giving me security in the eyes of others, that's making me feel more like I'm important. But no, the Sun is like, this is giving me joy. This is making my inner child light up. You know, it's like learning when you were a kid, where everything was just a new, glorious, grand experience. So that's the demo for that, just to let you know how the cards work with each other. Go ahead and use this one if you know you need a self-talk level up, darlings. Darlings, it has been an absolute pleasure to give you 4 self-love spreads to work with. Again, if you want to own the Trivedia Tarot and really get into this yourself, all of these glorious, shiny, beautiful cards, then you can go ahead and grab the discount code that is in the description. So that's really awesome to be able to offer. Thank you so much for being here for this. Tweak as you see fit. Don't forget, customize as you want to. These are just ideas. These are things that I give from my heart to help card slingers explore their self-love journey in more depth. I will be back soon with more self-love content and beyond. Much love, my darlings. Don't forget, check out my online store. The Samhain and Halloween readings are up now. Okay, so if you know you want something for that season, grab it now because they do sell out. They have sold out for the last 4 or 5 years. So grab one now, grab them while they're hot, and get in my schedule for next month. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. There is always so much other stuff going on Patreon. I cannot stress that enough. Much love, my darlings, and much self-love. Until next time, blessed be.